Hello again, I'm Kathy Fitzgerald, and we're going to section G this afternoon, talking about types of services and supports under the individual IDD waiver. So one of the largest or most important segments of service that people might receive is their habilitative services. So the definition of habilitation is assistance in acquiring, retaining, and improving self-help, socialization, and adaptive skills to reside successfully in the community-based setting of your choice. What does that really mean? Well, that means that you have to have support in order to learn how to walk across the street safely, or have help learning how to make friends, how to greet people, all of the things that most of us take for granted, that people with developmental disabilities perhaps don't learn unless somebody demonstrates, shows, or teaches them how to do that. I want to add just a little thought, if I could, plant a little seed in your mind, that one of the most critical parts of this description, I guess, of habilitation is retaining. So what do we know about people with developmental disabilities? Or any of us for that matter? If you're learning to speak French and you don't speak it often enough, you lose it. Well, people with intellectual or developmental disabilities, if they don't have the opportunity to repeat that activity or that skill often enough, they lose it. And so when you're looking at and when you're filling out your plan of care, oftentimes the state will want you to show where have you made progress, where are you gaining, show me that how that this service has improved what you're doing. Well, it's true, often hopefully we are showing progress and we are improving, but for many people with developmental disabilities, just that retention is a critical component. So remember that as you're working with your care coordinator and you're developing your plan of care, not to lose sight of that very important aspect of habilitation. It is what allows you to maintain. If you weren't receiving that support or service, then you're losing or slipping back in your skill sets. So there are basically two types of habilitative services. And the first type that we're going to talk about is residential habilitation services. And that's where an individual moves out of their family home into a different living environment. So the care coordinator is going to try to help you decide which particular kind of residential habilitative service is best for you. The first one is just what we call an assisted living home or group home, where somebody goes and really creates their own home. It's their home, and the staff is there to help them be able to live as independently as possible in that home. For example, you might have a cooking goal in your plan of care where you're learning to prepare meals, you're learning to grocery shop, you're learning to choose a menu, you're learning to how do you cook that, and how do you clean up after you cook that. So staff is helping you learn to do all of those things, really kind of doing them with you, or helping you learn the things that you can't do by yourself. They're really, if you think about it from this environment, the staff is there to support you in your own home. The other type of habilitative residential service is group homes, or family hab homes they're called. And that's where somebody goes into an existing family and merges into the routine and the lifestyle of that particular family. There, the family would be helping you perhaps prepare for bed, to get your shower, to brush your teeth. But basically, and you have things that you're doing as part of the family that you're expected to do. But it's not really your home so much as you're blending into their home. Whereas the typical assisted living home, it's your home and staff is there to support you in your home, if that makes sense to everyone. Um, I explain it this way. I have a friend who I know and knew quite well, whose family was transferred out of state, and this young man had grown up here. He had a job that he had actually gotten on his own and had worked years at this job. He had lots of friends. He had a really active social life, and he didn't want to leave Alaska. And so the family decided that he could stay, and with, of course, the help of residential rehabilitation. And so they chose for him to go into an assisted living home, or a group home as it's typically called. And he was there for several months, and he just simply wasn't very happy. And he wasn't happy uh, not because he wasn't learning skills, but because he missed his family so much, and that family engagement and that family dynamic with his family all out of state. And so he actually went from an assisted living home to a family hab home, where he really became incorporated with the family, and that felt much more comfortable to him. And for a long time that worked, until he got to the point that, like many of us do, we feel like we need to be out on our own. And he actually went from family hab home to now living in an apartment, his own. He actually owns the apartment, and he has staff that comes in and helps and supports him when he needs it. So when you're thinking about residential supports, you really need to think, not only is it a place that's going to be safe for you to live, but is it the right philosophical match? What is it that you're trying to get out of residential services and supports? What's going to make the most sense for you? So the other category under habilitation is called dehabilitation. And that again is learning, retaining, or improving skills to make you as independent as possible, and a full person, if you would. But there's services that happen outside the home. So it would be learning things that you would typically learn in a community environment. I think about dehabilitation as probably one of the most important support services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, because it's their opportunity to get out and explore and see the community, to be part of the community, to learn how to do all the things that you and I might do and take for granted, to learn how to shop, whether that's groceries or clothing, how to greet people, how to recreate, to go to a gym class, to go to an arts and crafts store, to develop all kinds of interest and hobbies. So it really is about all kinds of things, and if you think about it, it's about health and safety. It's about community participation. It's all of the things that people experience in their everyday lives if they don't have a disability. So dehabilitation allows for people with a disability the opportunity to volunteer, to learn whether or not working in a garden is something that they would like to do, or working with people is something that they would like to do. And it also gives them a chance to give back. People with developmental disabilities typically have always been on the receiving end of help. And when you can go out and volunteer, tend a community garden for people, or help your neighbor clear their driveway of snow, those are those are opportunities for people to give back, and they don't happen without the habilitative supports or staff supports to enable them to do such kinds of things. Another type of service or support that you can receive under the waiver is called intensive active treatment. Intensive active treatment is a therapy or treatment that is not typically something that you would be able to just have as a regular service from your DD provider. Another important component of the definition of intensive active treatment is that it's time limited. So it wouldn't be something that you would be expecting to be ongoing necessarily. Let me give you an example of intensive active treatment. Intensive active treatment would be if an individual all of a sudden they had been doing great, and all of a sudden they're blowing out of their residential habilitation. Nobody can figure out what's going on, and they're quite concerned about behaviors. And so perhaps they would access some certified behavioral specialist to come in to do an evaluation, to identify what the issue really was. Was it health? Was it, was it communication? Whatever it was, they would write a treatment plan, they would train staff, and they would help that person get back into their normal, happy self, right? Ideally. Another type of behavior is inappropriate sexual behavior. So you have somebody with a developmental disability who really doesn't understand what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. They may have been abused, sexually abused as a child, and think something that their behavior is typical, but that kind of behavior will put them in jail or put other people in danger. And so they really need help figuring out what's appropriate and what isn't, and assistance to make sure that they don't reoffend if they are offenders. So you would access intensive active treatment with something like the Center for Psychosocial Development, for example, who really would come in and assess what their sexual ideation was, how to build supports around that to make sure that they're never around elementary schools, or they don't go into bathrooms by themselves, or all of those kinds of things that they've identified. Those are examples of intensive active treatment. Again, remembering that they are time limited, so you're going to have to be able to either the intensive active treatment takes care of it, or if it's not quite finished, you have to be able to justify why you might need it to go on for a longer period of time.
This is Mark Regan from the Disability Law Center. There is a third set of things that you want to think about when you're talking about living in your own home and getting habilitation. That is in-home support services and supported living. I'm going to talk about those two things together. The point of that is that you are in your own home. You're not in an assisted living home. You're not in a group home. You're not in a family habilitation place. You are in your own apartment, or you are in your own house. Now, that's a good thing for you because you are living as independently as you can, and that's a very important thing under these waivers, is for you to be as independent as possible. But let's suppose that you need somebody to come in and do things with you to make sure that you're up, to make sure that you're about, to go through your routine with you to help you learn stuff. This is in your own home, but it's a lot like the residential habilitation services that Kathy has just been talking about. You have someone come in on a schedule and do some things to help you in your life at home that are like the things that a worker would do at an assisted living facility. And if you need those things, you can get them in your waiver service plan, because what you can do is have those built in as something called in-home services or something called supported living. It is possible to do.
So that's the end of Section G. Section H is coming up, where my friend and colleague will be talking to you about supported employment and some of the other service categories that are available to you under the IDD waiver. Thank you.